Hello friends, welcome to Total Recap. Today we are going to explain a movie named Chair Means Faces, released in 2021, so sit with some popcorns and enjoy this thriller/drama movie. The movie begins by showing a very snowy area. There, a man named Samir Mehta is driving to Delhi in a black BMW car. Just as he is on his way to Delhi, a shortcut route to Delhi appears to him. But as soon as he starts on this route, a large tree falls in his path. Due to this, Samir was not harmed, but his car was badly stuck there. That's when a man named Parmajit Singh Bular comes to help Samir and says, "Now, who knows when the government people will remove this tree? It will take at least 2 to 3 days. If you want, my friend's house is nearby. Wait there for a while, and when the road clears, you can continue from here." Upon hearing this from Parmajit, Samir gets ready to accompany them and takes out his necessary belongings from the car, locking it. However, when Samir began to put his car key into his pants pocket, the key slipped and fell right by the car. Afterward, Parmajit takes Samir to his friend's house. Upon arrival, they are welcomed by an elderly man named Jagdish Acharya. Additionally, in that house, there were one old man named Hariya and one girl, Anna. Apart from them, there was a dog named Tiger in the house. In reality, all of them had retired, and they all had connections to law and judiciary. Jagdish had been a judge, Parmajit was a criminal defense lawyer, Hariya was an executioner, and Anna was still studying law. Samir, the CEO of an advertising company, had just arrived at the same house. His wife and son were staying at a nearby resort. Since Samir's pants were completely soaked, he went to the guest room to change. There, he handed Anna some electric butterflies given by the ad company. It's also revealed here, as the audience, that Anna has a strong passion for painting and has created many paintings. After this, we learn that Anna was mentally disturbed because someone had raped her some time ago. In response, Anna's brother, Joy, killed the rapist. However, Joy had to go to jail for taking the law into his own hands, and the judge who sentenced Joy in court was none other than Jagdish. After Joy went to jail, Jagdish and his friends took care of Anna and raised her. In addition, Joy has also served his sentence, and now he lives in the same house with Jagdish and his friends. Then, in the story, Advocate Latif Javed enters and says, "Introduce me to that stranger who just arrived. He might be the owner of a big company and lives in Delhi and is married." Upon hearing this, Jagdish's other friends are surprised because they haven't told Latif anything about Samir, so how does he know all this? Latif then says, "I just observed that there is still water dripping from the coat hanging near the gate, which means he has arrived recently. His shoes and Louis Vuitton bag suggest either he is in a high position or he has his own business. There is a BMW car parked outside our house with a Delhi number plate, and I found the car key in the snow, which revealed that the car's papers are in the name of a woman, who is probably his wife." Between these things, Samir also meets Latif when he arrives there. After that, they start discussing all the laws, but Samir was not showing interest in these matters. Afterward, they all have a drink, and in the meantime, Jagdish starts telling Samir about their respective professions. Meanwhile, Latif notices Samir's expensive cigarette case, which had, "With love from N.O." written on it. Latif asks if it belongs to his wife, but Samir says that it was a gift from his girlfriend. Then Samir asks them if they don't get bored living in this house. After that, all the elders tell Samir about a game they play to pass their time. In fact, all of them still keep their professions alive and choose an old famous case to reenact it. Latif presents arguments on behalf of the prosecution, and Paramjit defends. As the judge, Jagdish delivers the verdict. Hearing all this, Samir finds the game quite boring. So, he refuses to participate in it. However, Anna forces him to play the game. Now, Jagdish informs Samir that today he is going to fight his case, and Samir is told that he is the accused. That means Latif will now accuse Samir of any crime, and then Paramjit will defend him. But upon hearing this, Samir says, "I have never committed any crime." However, Jagdish says, "Samir, you have a chance. You can admit to any crime at any age in your life, except for the one in question, and then the case will proceed based on that crime." Samir says, "I have never committed any crime in my life, so Mr. Latif can't accuse me of anything." After that, Mr. Latif asks Samir about his family and Samir unlocks his phone right in front of Mr. Latif to show a photo of his son. Along with this, Samir also mentions that he used to be in a small position at some ad agency, but after his boss and the CEO of the ad company, G.S. Oswal, passed away a month and a half ago, he has become the new CEO of the company. Samir also adds, Oswal was a very strict man. He never gave credit to anyone for their work and always found faults in everyone's work. However, he was also crazy about golf. Although he rarely took vacations, he recently took a 1-month leave. Besides that, he was a big workaholic. After hearing all these things, Jagdish realized that Samir didn't seem to care at all about his boss Oswal's death. In addition, Mr. Latif began to suspect Samir of being involved in Oswal's death, as Samir became the CEO of the company right after Oswal's death. Keeping all these things in mind, Mr. Latif accused Samir of murdering his boss, saying, Samir killed his boss, Oswal. Hearing this made Samir quite angry, but Parmajit had complete faith in his client, Samir. Now that the accusation was made, they all sat down for dinner, but at the dinner table, Mr. Latif repeatedly asked Samir the same question. How did you kill Oswal? Did you poison him, or did you strangle him? Hearing this, Samir became extremely frustrated. After this, Samir, while describing Mr. Latif as Mr. Oswal's hobbies, once calls him a grump, and Mr. Latif catches onto this because he felt that Samir had removed Oswal from the CEO position in order to take it himself. However, Samir says, that's absolutely not true. There were 2 other candidates besides me for this position, and I got this post solely because of my capability, especially after G.'s death. Now, after dinner, the courtroom is fully prepared, and Mr. Latif asks Samir first, what was Mr. Oswal's wife's name? In response to this, Samir says, Natasha Oswal. Latif then says, N.O, and this name is also written on your cigarette cover, which means you know Mrs. Oswal quite well. So, she gave you such an expensive cigarette cover as a gift. Here, Samir says, yeah, I knew her, and we were in a relationship for a while too, but I didn't know she was Mr. Oswal's wife. But Latif doesn't believe Samir's words and says, you knew that Natasha is Mr. Oswal's wife, and you intentionally got close to Natasha so that you could mentally disturb Mr. Oswal. But here, Samir completely disagrees with this. After that, he openly tells the whole true story and says, he had once gone to a nightclub, where I saw a girl in a drugged state as she was leaving the nightclub. In reality, that girl was Natasha, and one of her earrings had fallen to the ground, which Samir goes behind her to return. After that, he notices that Natasha has consumed a lot of alcohol, so she can't drive, so Samir drives her car and takes her to her farmhouse. Since that day, they started meeting each other several times, and now they had become quite close to each other. Then, one day, Samir finds out that the person who is his boss is Natasha's husband. As soon as Samir learns that Natasha is his boss's wife, from that day on, he completely stops talking to Natasha. A few days later, Samir receives a call from Natasha, where she had called him to meet for some urgent work at his farmhouse. But when Samir goes there and sees, the farmhouse door was locked, and in one room, the light was repeatedly turning on and off. Upon seeing this, Samir jumps over the entry gate and has to go to that room from the balcony. Then he sees Natasha in that room, with her hands tied and tape over her mouth. Here, Samir breaks the window and goes inside, and when he frees Natasha, she tells him that her husband beats her for his pleasure and he is so possessive that he trapped me here. Now on that present day, Mr. Latif asks Samir, did you get angry hearing this? Samir replies, yes, and if perhaps Mr. Oswal had been in front of me that day, I would have beaten him up. But I didn't actually hit him, please don't accuse me of that. In fact, it was a natural death due to a heart attack, and when he had the heart attack, I was right there with him. Actually, at that time, we were all at the golf course where he had called me to look at a project file on the weekend, but during this, after he took the first shot, he started feeling pain in his chest. By the time I brought the doctor there, a considerable amount of time had passed, and he had already passed away. Here once again, Latif tackles Samir and says that such a workaholic man who never took leave, took a whole month's leave, which means he will be very sick in that 1 month. This means that Mr. Oswal had his first heart attack at the same time he had taken leave, and there are very high chances that a second heart attack can lead to death of any person. Along with this, Mr. Latif also accuses Samir that, when he went to meet Natasha that night, he came to know that Mr. Oswal had suffered a heart attack earlier. So there you both made a plan that once again give him a heart attack, so that he can die, and because GS was very possessive about his wife Natasha, so you recorded an intimate scene with Natasha and then went to the golf club and sent it to Mr. Oswal. Subsequently, after watching this video, Mr. Oswal had a heart attack and died. After that, Mr. Latif opens the door, which is why he also finds out that Samir had planned to kill Mr. Oswal. In fact, when the case was going on against Samir, the courtroom, which means this house, had a power outage. After that, Samir went upstairs to change his clothes. In addition, the judge and the defense attorney also went upstairs for a while. Meanwhile, Mr. Latif thoroughly checked Samir's phone because he knew Samir's password. That's why Latif finds the video that Samir had sent to Mr. G.S. Oswal. Seeing this, Samir gets very angry, and in his anger, he says, I didn't do anything like that, it was Natasha who deceived me and framed me, which is why I also killed my boss. In fact, here Samir had already agreed to carry out Oswal's murder. Afterward, he tells his real story and says that the day he went to meet Natasha, She herself had told him that Mr. Oswald had suffered a heart attack once, and if he were to have another heart attack, he might die. However, Samir had refused Natasha here, saying, "I can't risk my job. If Mr. Oswald stays alive, I'll lose my job." But here, Natasha also tells Samir that if we give him a potassium injection, he might die in 2 minutes due to overdose. Samir liked this idea, and after showing the video at the golf club, Natasha injected Mr. Oswald in the foot. At the same time, when Mr. Oswald became unconscious, Natasha immediately deleted the video sent by Samir from his phone. But after that, suddenly, Natasha stopped talking to Samir. Although he had been waiting for Natasha for more than a month, he went to her house every day. He also went to the nightclub where he had first met Natasha. However, for the next month, he did not have any meetings with her. But one day, Samir sees Natasha with another guy named Richard. Upon observing, Samir realizes that Natasha and Richard are discussing the sale of a significant amount of GS properties. This makes Samir understand that Natasha and Richard had a plan to kill his boss, Oswald. First that night, Natasha intentionally dropped her earnings in front of Samir because she knew that Samir worked for GS company and could benefit from this. But Samir records a video of their conversation and then blackmails Natasha, saying that he also wants 3 million rupees from her property, or else he will make the video he recorded go viral. After that, he takes Natasha's gun and the cigarette lying on the table. In addition to this, Samir also takes Natasha's BMW car with him. When Mr. Latif had searched Samir's BMW car, he had seen the papers in the car, which were actually in the name of Natasha Oswald. After this, Natasha called Samir today to inform him that his money has been collected, which is why he was going to Delhi even in such bad weather. After hearing all of this, Mr. Latif says, "A crime is a crime, whether it's small or big, so it should be punished." Now, Judge Jagdish delivers the verdict that Samir should be hanged. Well, up until now, Samir thought this was all a game, but he gets really angry when he realizes that it's not a game, but he's actually going to be punished. Because Mr. Latif says here, "We bring every criminal who comes here to justice, so we have CCTV cameras installed throughout the house, and now your case is also recorded in those CCTV cameras. Tomorrow morning, it will go to the court and the crime branch team, and after that, they will receive their punishment." After hearing this, Samir attempts to flee from there and pulls out his gun without looking, shooting randomly in all directions. He tries to break open the door lock with his gun and makes an attempt to escape. However, behind him, Joy, Mr. Latif, and Parmajit Singh are also running, and they had caught Samir. But Samir manages to break free from them and successful to broke the DVD in which his entire case was recorded. Afterward, he starts running in a direction where there was a very fragile layer of ice over a large pit. However, Samir doesn't listen to any of the three and, in the end, suddenly, the ice there breaks, and Samir falls into the pit. After that, Mr. Latif calls the police and informs them that a stranger had passed through here and fell into a big pit, dying. At the end of the movie, we see a scene where Natasha comes to their house to pick up Samir's phone, but Latif and his companions insist that Natasha stay the night at their house because it's about to get dark soon, and it's not safe to drive in these circumstances. On top of that, Anna also forcefully convinces Natasha to stay with them. Upon hearing this, Natasha agrees to stay the night, and the movie ends right here. Now we all know what might happen with Natasha. To see more content such like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.